we still try to find the content. What does European solidarity means today under this critical circumstances? Please, Dimitri, you have the floor.
Thank you, Marilena. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here with all of you. And I would like to congratulate, before I start, the Institute, IDIS, for taking this initiative and bringing us all here together. Ino and the board of IDIS, many, many congratulations. You make us all proud as a member of IDIS and a member of the faculty at Πάντειο University. It's a great pleasure to see this flourishing and growing, and hope it becomes a permanent institution in the conference circuit in Europe, where we will meet to discuss the very important critical issues in these critical times that we live with such huge geostrategic changes. The honor becomes even greater having to be in the same panel with Peter Altmaier, who has been a leading politician in Europe, a protagonist in the German political scene for many, many years, very well known here in Greece, for better sometimes because of the crisis as well. We have been fixated with German politics, especially since 2010. Now, as he mentioned, he comes from the westernmost part of Germany, the wider Rhine region, and he represents the most pro-European, let me say, tradition of German politics, starting with Konrad Adenauer, the famous mayor of Cologne, nearby, with the CDU strong commitment to Europe. And me coming from the same political family, New Democracy, Nea Δημοκρατία, the European People's Party, I feel very much at home. And it's great that in our audience we have a former prime minister as well from Slovakia. We had a chance yesterday to listen to you, sir, Mr. Dzurinda, who is now heading the Martens Center of our EPP, and many, many other distinguished guests from here, ambassadors, military officers, and foreigners as well. So, in that spirit of family, the family spirit, allow me to be what I am quite known as a straight shooter and come to the chase with where we stand. Now, I'm not only a professor, I'm also a politician representing the Greek voters. And as such, let me say the following. Greece has done its part for solidarity with the Ukrainian crisis. This is a country that has a very strong historical bond with Russia. My own father was born in Russia, and I was brought up in a family where Russian was spoken, just like many, many Greeks, and we continue to have a diaspora there. It has to do with history, it has to do with religion, it has to do with culture, it has to do with Turkey, it has to do with many things. But the Greek people have been emotionally close to Russia. Nevertheless, and despite that, the Greek government, and we are very proud of that, took a very clear position in condemning Russian aggression, Russian revisionism, Russian brutality. And I was the speaker in the Council of Europe in regards representing EPP for the expulsion of Russia from the Council. And it is symbolically important to have a Greek and not a Pole or a Baltic state representative arguing about that expulsion. And on top of that, we send weapons, and we have received thousands of Ukrainian refugees in ways that our friends from Eastern Europe did not in 2015-2016. So I hear your pledge to send advanced weaponry further to Ukraine. And I had that discussion in Prague a few days ago in our Cossack meeting there of the national parliaments, when the German head of the German delegation from the Green Party asked to send Leopard, advanced tanks. And my counter argument is, of course, we have to send, and we have already sent, and we should do more. But how am I supposed to convince my fellow parliamentarians and Greek people, Greek voters, when I have a country next to me threatening me with invasion on a daily basis, and I have a Turkish President Erdogan saying time and again that he will come, they will come at night. They doubt and question the sovereignty, the Greek sovereignty of the Greek islands of the Eastern Aegean. They go all the way to Libya to sign agreements circumventing Crete and the rest of the islands. How am I supposed to weaken Greek defense in support of Ukraine when I have this very concrete, very real threat on my eastern border, on top of which Germany continues to sell weapons to that country, advanced weapons, including submarines, with which this country is threatening me to invade? So there is a question there that needs to be answered. This is question number one, solidarity and what to do with this kind of threats. Question number two has to do with a certain feeling here in Greece, maybe unjust, but it's certainly a well-established feeling that Germany has, for a very long time, until recently, and certainly under Mrs. Merkel, followed a policy of equidistance between what we claim to be a victim and a victimizer, between Greece and Turkey. Now, we are seeing a certain movement towards the right direction recently, mainly because of the Greens. But there are some complaints, let me put it this way, with the German policy vis-à-vis that problem so far. And the Greek argument is that we cannot afford another Putin. We have had one. We made big mistakes, and I want your opinion about these mistakes that happened during the 2010s with Russia. After Crimea in 2014, we doubled on our energy dependency on Russia. We went to build Nord Stream 2 to further engage with Russia. We did not hear the warnings against Putin. And now we have many Poles and many others in Eastern Europe telling us, we told you so, right? And I wonder if there is any self-criticism and any kind of debate, especially within CDU party, vis-à-vis that, and what does it mean for the future now? Because what has been done, and we are trying now to correct it. But we have a revisionist power in our midst, which happens to be a NATO member as well, important country, very important country, on which Greece invested a lot and supported its European vocation a lot after Helsinki in 1999. Nobody can accuse the Greeks for being in bad faith, on the contrary, but which unfortunately in the last few years has turned authoritarian domestically and aggressive externally. I would like to ask you about your involvement in the decision of shutting down the nuclear reactors in Germany in 2012. I noted that you blamed the Greens, but it was the Angela Merkel government.
It's nonsense. Sorry. I come back. Go on.
Yes,
sorry.
yes. It might be nonsense, yes. No, I heard you saying that under the pressure of the Green Party, we closed the, right. I misquoted you.
No, you have correctly.
Okay.
Come to that back. So
good. So I heard that, and so, but the Greens were in opposition, and of course it is their policy, but it was the CDU-led policy that took it, and I wonder if there is counter thoughts today in Germany about that and where we stand vis-a-vis this thing. Now, when it comes to Eastern Mediterranean, which is fundamental for this part of the world, we tend to look at various divergences between the big powers of Europe, and I'm referring to France and Germany. France is taking a very clear position against the hegemonic desires of Turkey. Has signed a military pact with Greece with a mutual defense clause. And has taken the position of Egypt, Israel, Greece, Cyprus, and all the other littoral countries, bar Turkey. And I wonder if, and this goes to Libya as well, and the problems now we have in Syria, etc. And I wonder if this perception is real or wrong, the divergences, the disagreements between the two, France, Germany, if you have a thought on that. I don't want to go further. Again, I want to congratulate you for your European commitment, which is very important to us. The Greeks have proven time and again that they are true Europeanists. We went through a lot in 2010. A crisis no other EU country has faced, and nevertheless we remained, we stayed the course, thanks to your help, no doubt, the German help. I want to congratulate you about the fact that you have been a politician who stayed with your beliefs and your ideas. Many people in the audience might not know that in 2017 you voted your conscience in favor of same-sex marriage, which makes you even more commendable, because I truly believe that we need these politicians of principle. And having said all that, I would very much love to have your opinion, just like the audience, on all these fronts. The criticism against Germany vis-a-vis Russia, what is to happen with Turkey, what is happening within EU, the same way that Marilena, my dear colleague, mentioned, to build that arm capability, the disagreements with France, and where we are heading in this very full plate that we have. Thank you.
I think you have a series of provocative questions,
thank
please.
You for this very friendly but also open and concrete questions. First of all, is it working? No. Thank you so much for this very friendly but also open remarks and contributions. And I will answer it very frankly as well. First of all, you mentioned the nuclear issue. That's interesting, because Germany has done something that was not done by most of the other industrialized countries like worldwide. We have decided to switch off all our nuclear power plants. This decision was taken 22 years ago, not by Angela Merkel. It was taken by the Red-Green coalition government of Chancellor Schröder and Foreign Secretary Joschka Fischer. I was member of parliament. All my colleagues in my group voted against it. We promised in our election manifesto in 2002, in 2005, and in 2009 that we would revise that decision as soon as we are elected in government again. We lost the 2002 election. Chancellor Merkel won 2005, but was confined to a grand coalition with Social Democrats. They were against revision of this phasing out. Then 2009, we won the election and we entered a coalition with the Liberal Democrats. And then we revised, as promised in the manifesto, the decision, and we extended the lifetime of almost all nuclear power plants until the mid-2030s. That means 10 years longer from now on than originally expected and decided by the government. I was at that time a close collaborator of Chancellor Merkel, in my capacity as a chief whip. We had a narrow majority of only 30 people in parliament, and that means when 15 defect to the enemy, you lose the vote. So I managed to get a majority in order to extend the working of the power plants. Half a year later, or a year later, the Fukushima incident occurred. And then the Green Party, who has been campaigning against nuclear power, was campaigning day and night. It was supported by the Social Democrats, and then it was supported, yes, by some Christian Democrats as well. But this was according to the political will of 80% of the German population at that time. We had lots of debates on TV between churches, trade unions, employers, climate activists, everybody. And there was a large consensus to phase out. And then, indeed, it was Chancellor Merkel was a chancellor. When we then, 1 year after the extension, we decided to go back to the red-green decision, switching them of all. But this was the decision supported by the largest majority in parliament ever in Germany, by the leftist party, by the Social Democratic Party, by the Green Party, and by Angela Merkel's coalition government as well. So you can still say Angela Merkel is to blame, but I can tell you she was the only one who tried to draw the conclusion from the fact that we were implementing at large scale renewables and would have to switch off coal-fired power plants. And by the way, I cannot remember that our European friends, and I have, as you have mentioned, and I'm very grateful for that, I have been a European all my life. I have been a European Commission civil servant. I worked with Greek colleagues door to door. I cannot remember that any European friend approached me in the critical weeks and said, oh, you are making a big mistake. Nobody, and certainly not from Greece. I would remember if this would have been the case. So, nevertheless, mistakes have perhaps been made. And now you have a debate on what to do and whether to use the 3 remaining and 2 already switched off power plants. These are 5 out of 15 we have had in the past. Power plants for a certain while a bit longer to ease the energy pressure. It's not the problem of the Liberal Party in government. It's not the problem of the Christian Democratic opposition. It's not the problem, I suppose, by the Social Democrats. It is the veto of the Green Party. And I'm not in a position to criticize my government from outside, from abroad, even if Greece is a friend. I would never criticize my party. There was one exception when I said, and that was not as a critique, that was as a strong conviction when I said the European solidarity and the Franco-German cooperation are key for me all my life and will remain key, and I'm disappointed that it does not exist in this very moment. So you can discuss it with others. And when it comes to new nuclear power plants, Finland has realized one, by the way, with Russian help. They basically bought it in Russia. The French and the Polish have announced to build new nuclear power plants, but it will take many, many years. And it would take certainly 15 to 20 years in Germany as well. But then the question is, what will our neighboring countries do? Is Greek interesting of building some nuclear power plants or providing Europe with electricity? If you look to the webpage smart.de, then you can see the production of German electricity from fossil fuels, from nuclear and from renewables, and the demand, and then you can calculate the export. Germany still is an electricity exporting country. And if we will have some risk of energy shortage this winter in Central Europe, Germany, France, Austria, Netherlands, Belgium, Poland, then it is not because we are not producing enough electricity for ourselves. It is the fact that we have to export so much electricity because half of the French nuclear power plants are out of functioning. For security reasons, we have the biggest and highest security requirements in Europe. I'm arguing that Germany has a responsibility because it has been an electricity exporting country for many, many decades. But you cannot blame us that we are an electricity exporting countries if others have not done the homework that is necessary. And I'm not talking about Greece, I'm talking about the European Union. So why not coming together in the European Council or in the Council of Ministers for Energy and discussing also the energy mix, even if this is not mentioned in the European treaties. But the fact that we have an electricity market in Europe, interdepending, in my eyes means that we have to discuss the contribution that could come reasonably from every country, including Germany itself. The second question with regard to Turkey. Please forgive me. I'm not interfering with the politics of my country and certainly not with regard to Greece and Turkey when I'm not in Germany. I'm not doing it as a pensioner every day. It is a matter of style and politeness. But I have been, as a Chief of Staff to Chancellor Merkel between 2013 and 2018, I have been confronted with severe rhetoric attacks by the Turkish president against Germany. That was a big, not a crisis, but a big tension. And I have answered that on behalf of my government. And I have refused it. But at the same time, I'm deeply convinced that Turkey, and this is the difference with Russia today, unfortunately, Turkey still is, and despite Mr. Erdogan and all what he has done, is a democratic country. And that you can see when you look at the results of the last municipality elections in Turkey. Mr. Erdogan's party lost the majority not only in Izmir, not only in Istanbul, in many, many other countries. In Turkey, you have a democratic society with intellectual heritage over centuries, as it is the case, perhaps not as intensively as in Greece, because you have invented democracy, you have propelled democracy throughout the world. That is unprecedented and will never be reached by any other country. But this is, and Turkey is a NATO member. If we want to keep NATO working and together in external action, then I would not recommend today to say let's dismantle NATO. You are not proposing, if I understand you correctly, that we should exclude Turkey from NATO membership. And if it is part of NATO still, and they are reliable members of NATO, then I think you have to try to solve conflicts and to avoid attacks. You can blame me for being wrong, but I still believe that a solution is possible, but it would require efforts, very, very hard efforts, in order to reveal an internal thing. I accepted Marian's invitation to speak today and to share some thoughts with you and to learn from you. But a couple of weeks later, I received an invitation by a Turkish institution to take the floor on a similar event. And of course, I would have accepted that as well if I would have been in a position, but unfortunately, I had accepted another engagement somewhere else, and therefore I had to say, no, it is not possible, perhaps next year. But never stop talking as long as you are in an alliance with another country, and the Western alliance is the best thing we ever have made. And then the last point, perhaps, and then we will take questions from the audience. The last point is, yes, indeed, solidarity. It is a learning process. The first step was to say we will not let down Greece in the crisis of 2010. And then very severe restrictions were imposed by the European Union as such. And some of the measures you have implemented were later criticized by others. For example, the fact that the harbor of Piraeus was privatized. It's now heavily criticized by the same people who have insisted on the privatization of the harbor of Piraeus. And then I say, if we believe critical infrastructure should not be privatized to countries outside the European Union, and I basically share that position, then of course we should provide offers from inside the European Union for taking over the critical infrastructure that has to be privatized in order to become functioning again. So these are lots of issues we have to discuss. In the second euro crisis related to Greece, when Mr. Tsipras and Mr. Varoufakis were in government, I can tell you there have been leading figures from my own party quoted is over after the second program expired and the night from Tuesday to Wednesday. I have, but Angela Merkel and myself, I was chief of staff at that, a minister in the chancellery at that time. We were always resolved, and we said, no, it's not over. We want Greece to stay in the Eurozone, and therefore Greece has to accept, of course, basically the conditions. What Mr. Tsipras finally did, and Mr. Varoufakis was fired. That was not, by the way, our demand. We were not interfering in Greek politics. But the point is, and Prime Minister Surinder is here, Wolfgang Schäuble, when he said it's over, disposed over a majority of the Eastern European countries. And they said we are poorer, we have made more reforms and undertaken more efforts to help ourselves. And now we shall be taken responsible to provide help to Greece, and we see no results of reforms that are so badly needed. That was the situation. And nevertheless, Greece is still a member of the Eurozone, and all the other members who entered the Eurozone are still members of the Eurozone. And I think this is a big success. Together with NATO, the internal market in the Eurozone, we made us stronger and more resilient against countries like Russia and other non-democratic countries worldwide. And as far as France and Germany is concerned, I have told you my ideas. I hope that we can repair it and that we, Angela, we have always had divergence between France and Germany, not because we are so similar, but because we are so different in mentality, in experience, in ideas. But then it was so important for President Mitterrand and Chancellor Kohl to overcome the divergences and to build on the euro and the internal market. It was so important for Gerhard Schröder and President Chirac to overcome the divergences in the Iraq war, even if the result was not the result I would have preferred. The third one was Angela Merkel and Nicolas Sarkozy in Deauville in the first euro crisis. The third one was Mr. Hollande and Mrs. Merkel in the Ukrainian crisis in the Minsk agreement, Russian aggression against Ukraine the first time in 2015, and the last one with Nicolas Sarkozy as far as the Resilience and Reconstruction Fund is concerned. And now again we need... Macron, yes, Macron. No, Macron. And now we need a next Franco-German consensus on the necessary solidarity in Europe with the European countries first, and with Ukraine at the same time, how to proceed further and how to deal further with it. We have been able to manage reverse flow of natural gas that we have bought in Russia to Ukraine for almost 8 years. It was organized with the European Commission. We bought the gas in Germany from Russia, and we have sold it to Ukraine and made sure that, that nobody had to freeze. And this is now becoming the next big challenge of us. Make no mistake about this. Russia had lost the war from a military point of view, and now they are destroying the infrastructure.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we are absolutely out of time. I know you have a lunch commitment, and thank you so much for your insights. Thank you, Dimitri, for your provocating comments. Thank you all for being here with us.